Hello coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach Breakdown. Today we will talk about how to coach freedom in the attack. 3 exercises. If you want the breakdowns and the dimensions, you can get them for free, no login required, on the link below, modernsoccercoach.com. We've got tons of free information over there, plus ebooks, plus webinars. Please check it out, modernsoccercoach.com. All right, attacking freedom, let's go. Okay, before we start, I think it's really important to identify and clarify what we mean by attacking freedom. Of course, in recent weeks, we've heard about robotic football from Gary Neville and how football is probably too structured. And I would definitely agree with that. However, I don't believe you can simply just change and go back to free flow in Brazil 1982 and let your attackers go wherever they want, because one, players are used to structure in terms of how they are developed today, and 2, because relationships are so important in the attack, players will not know where their teammates are and they will not be ready for those timings or read those positions, and it will probably be ineffective. So I definitely think you need some form of structure. I think the art in coaching today is how to gauge and manage structure and creativity. So in these exercises today, there is an element of structure, but there's also an element of freedom and creativity. So if you like these exercises and you want some more of these types of ideas, please make sure you like and please make sure you subscribe. 3 exercises, 3 attacking exercises with structure, but also with freedom. Here we go. All right, the first exercise is an attacking 8v7 exercise, but there's a unique design around the pitch. We've got that V shape in the middle. So instead of restricting players and saying, you can't go there, you can't go here, what the V shape does in the middle is that it just adds a delay and a little bit of direction on where the freedom might occur. So you can use the goalkeepers on both sides, and you're trying to pin that back 4 in initially with the attacking positions, and then the midfielders are basically designed as outlets to move the possession initially, but then as play develops now and the V shape flattens out a little bit, now those attackers have more freedom. So it's a unique way of manipulating an exercise where, again, it's not necessarily just the restrictions, it's the shape of the exercise that makes players have to problem solve without necessarily being told where to go. So you might find different solutions around playing around the block, playing through the block, but players can generally problem solve through movement the further they progress the ball. This next exercise is a 6v6 plus 2 game where you're going to build them from the goalkeeper. The wide players are the neutral players. They're the plus 2. They're used pretty deliberately as support players in the initial one, so they stay inside for the initial movement. And then once the ball is progressed into the attacking half, those wide players can move with freedom to support and create that attacking overload. So the attacking overload is going to be created by the wide players, by the yellow players. So they're support players initially where they stay outside. As the ball progresses, now those wide players can move inside with supporting players, and you can create that overload and goal scoring opportunities. And then the third game is a 4v4 to goal. Now you've got the zones, which are reference points to start, wide 1v1, centrally 2v2 with the 9, the 10 against the centre backs. And the condition of this game is that the attackers can move freely around the zones, but the defenders have to stay. So again, it allows the attackers to be pretty deliberate in their movement. They can combine, defenders have to stay, but there is the one condition of a shot clock, so you don't want to use that overload and that advantage in terms of possession in that area of the field. You want the ball to move quite quickly, and you want that attacking team to have that intent within the penalty area. So I think it's a really good game for, again, maybe looking at what restrictions the defenders have and how you can create those overloads, but also with the shot clock you add a little bit of pressure with that ball movement in terms of speed, which can add a little bit of realism as well that you might lose with the restriction of the defender's movement. So good game, competitive game. You double the defender's goals, so you make it as competitive as you can. If they score, it's worth 2. If the attacker scores, it's worth 1. Play short sets in terms of duration, and again, the intensity is high, and if the ball movement is high as well, you can replicate those challenges of the match. All right, coaches, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you want the dimensions and the details of the exercises, you can get them for free. modernsoccercoach.com. We put a ton of free information on the website, so if you enjoy the work, please make sure you like and please make sure you share with your coaching community. Again, as I said at the start, I think it's important today to have some form of structure and then look for that freedom in your sessions, in your player profiling, in your type of coaching. I think that's the best way to do it. I think for so much of positional play, you start with structure, and then the longer that goes with structure, the harder it is to perhaps get that freedom and that creativity. But I think, again, the art of coaching is the ability to create sessions that has freedom but allows players at certain points to move. I think when you're doing that, you also challenge yourself in the design rather than saying, hey, go wherever you want. Well, then it's just a 5v5 exercise, and that can create a disconnect with the game because the game will be organized. The 5v5 will be freedom of movement, and then all of a sudden players won't necessarily be able to connect the two. So I think it's healthy to have a structured exercise. Again, in those exercises we showed, you had positions in all three of them. However, I think there's a point in it where if you're a coach, you're looking and saying, okay, is it a little bit too structured in the final third, in the attacking third? If it is, maybe then you can look at ways, like we showed some ideas around ways to free it up and ways to maybe allow players to go wherever they want. Then that builds the relationships and that builds the connections that you need in the final third, especially playing against teams that are so effective in transition. You want to make sure that players are aware of roles and responsibilities, but you don't want to have it too much where they're standing in positions and then they're easy to mark. Attacking freedom is not easy to coach. It's not easy to train. It's not easy to manufacture. If it was, we would see a lot more of it. So I would advise coaches that when they're going through this process to be patient with it and always review sessions, be critical of your own sessions, not in terms of the players, but in how you are designing the sessions. And again, maybe ask for some feedback from other coaches. But I think that's a great starting point, and I hope you enjoy the conversation and enjoy the ideas. If you do, please make sure you like before you shoot off, and please check out modernsoccercoach.com. Thanks so much for the support. See you next week. Bye.